All right, this is Kyle with the podcast Two Protects One. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So, on tonight's show, we're going to discuss the newest right wing drama. I almost hate doing this show. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't like it, but I'm going to talk about it because the more I thought about it and the more I watched the interview, I felt like I needed to say something about it. But anyway, so Dave Landau went on Michael Malice's show this past Wednesday and basically trashed Steven Crowder. Not so much the whole show, but definitely threw some stones at Crowder himself. But before I get into all that important information, all the important details, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Okay. This stream is live on Rumble and YouTube as we speak. I made sure that while the intro music was going, just to make sure. So there's been a growing trend here lately. It seems like every couple weeks, another right wing content creator is being exposed as being a fake, a fraud, a gay, a pedo, or a tranny lover. It has created a big shitstorm of infighting within the right wing spaces on social media, and the left continues to laugh at our dysfunction. They're laughing at us. They are absolutely having a good time at our expense, and it kind of just seems like we're imploding right before everybody's eyes. Okay. There is no sense of unity like there was back in 2015 when Donald Trump ran for president the first time. Even in 2020, we were in my opinion, we were really unified. We were probably more unified than I'd ever seen the right, behind somebody or someone. I would say there was a little bit of doubt with the whole COVID thing and how Trump handled it. But for the most part, we all wanted Donald Trump to be president in 2020. And we all know how that story went. But the right is just imploding. And it's crazy to watch. But although I agree with Dave Landau on a lot of these issues, I will try to keep my opinion on both sides or try to give my opinion on both sides as we react to Dave's interview on the Michael Malice show. So let's go ahead and show some clips from the Michael Malice show. I actually have his podcast pulled up, and I'm going to go ahead and play. And what we're going to do basically is a live reaction. I don't want you to sit here and take my opinion for it, or, I don't want to sit here and spout off my opinion or what I remember of the show because I think that does it injustice. So I want to play the video and then do like a live reaction and kind of give my opinions as we go through it. So I wanted to make sure that I did, because I heard Tim Pool's show last night. They did a little segment on Dave Landau's interview, and I felt like they misrepresented some of it. They didn't get some of the core information correct. Like they got confused on some stuff, and it sounded bad. So I thought it would be beneficial if we just went ahead and played the video clip. Now, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this or if it's going to get that like copyright or whatever, but I'm going to do a reaction video and we'll just see how it goes. So let's give it a shot here. So we'll go ahead and play the start here. This is where he starts talking about Crowder. Okay, so Dave Landau is starting a new show with Quarter Black Garrett, and it's going to be on the Blaze. It's not like a political show. It's like skit comedy, which I'm super excited for. You know, I'm really excited for that show to come out. And I do want to say this, just because I give my opinion on Dave and I give my opinion on Crowder, it doesn't mean I don't like these guys. And it doesn't mean I'm picking a side, because technically I'm not. Me and my wife, we went and seen Dave live here in Ohio. And Dave was super nice, super humble, really just a stand up guy. Okay. We got our pictures taken with him. Super nice guy. Okay. I just think this is strictly business. And some things happened that made it turn a little bit more personal. And I kind of feel bad for both sides, because I don't know. I don't, because they made a good team. That's about the best way I can explain it. When they were both on TV at the same time, they were actually really good together. So that's why I said at the beginning, I really don't want to do this video, just for that simple fact that I don't want to have to pick sides. I'm still going to watch both these guys' content. I like Crowder. I see a lot of people on the internet, on Twitter, like picking sides right now. Yeah, Crowder runs a company, and he has made, in my opinion, in the last 6 months, made some really piss poor choices. And all that shit, which we'll talk about with the Daily Wire, with Dave, I feel like he made some bad decisions. He's also made some good ones. And he's also thriving on Rumble. So I don't know. You know, when you run a business and from, you know, the sound of it, he's kind of controlling. When you run a business, you're going to make mistakes. And I think the way he handled all this shit with Dave was a mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up, and I'll play the interview.
But you also had some other news. So you're officially have left Louder with Crowder.
I did. I left a while ago. Yeah, a little while ago. I had left. I think we talked that day a bit. I had jury duty, actually, when I was going to go back onto the show. They had offered an NDA that I had turned down, and he did give me a nice, going away thing, gift. I don't want to get into it, but it was still but they decided not to have me back on. I decided to leave, and I walked from the show. It was a long time coming, about a year now. It was just through various contract issues, and it's an odd thing, because I wanted to address it, and we had talked about it a little bit. And you made a very good point to me of, like, I could either bring it up or have my story be told for me.
Yeah.
And I don't. It sucks, because I'm never one of those people that wants to go out and kind of. It doesn't feel like narking, you know what I mean? But it's one of those things where, after what happened, even when I left Anthony's show, there were so many people that drew their
Anthony
own.
Cumia.
Anthony Cumia's show, for people that don't know me. I used to be the co-host there. So many conclusions were drawn to what actually happened, as opposed to what actually happened.
See, I have mixed emotions on this part, okay? Now, Dave could be telling the truth, and I believe he probably is, okay? He probably didn't really want to do this. But also, just like what Crowder did with Daily Wire, I feel like there could have possibly been a better solution. Like, they could have went a different direction. And I think I think all the stuff that happened between him and Crowder just piled up, and he said, enough's enough. I don't want people thinking that I'm the reason. Like, I wanted more money and I just left because of that. And he wanted to explain his story. I just think it could have possibly been handled a little bit different.
And I don't want people to think that there's things that went on behind the scenes that didn't.
Yeah, so just to fill in the blanks, I think a lot of times, and we've all experienced this on social media, I certainly have, when someone doesn't get their story out and there's gaps, the audiences will fill in those gaps for you and leap to all sorts of conclusions and just kind of create a narrative that doesn't at all comport to reality. So a lot of times when a lot of times, I don't always do this, but it's important to be like, all right, here's the tea. This is what really happened, and so on and so forth. Do you want to talk a bit about like, what led up to this decision on your part?
Yeah, I guess the beginning of it was everything was going pretty well at the beginning of the show when I
When did
first
you
signed on.
join that show? Let's talk
I
about that.
Okay, I joined the show I was first offered February 2001.
Okay, 2001.
No, 2021.
He kind of messed up there. Which I'm going to say this. I will fast forward some of this stuff because there are ads, and but these jokes are kind of funny. They have a lot of jokes mixed in here too, which I find hilarious.
Okay,
I
yeah.
forget. I'm like,
It was right. We
Boy.
needed to make America laugh because they knew something was on the horizon.
Yes, I joined in my 5th year of high school, which is a fact. Yes, I joined shortly before 9/11.
Yes.
Yeah, I joined in February 2021. When Anthony, I thought, was going to be moving to South Carolina.
Yeah.
So Stephen had made an offer to come work for him, and I had been guesting on the show fairly regularly, so I took him up on that offer.
Okay. How did you find it? Let's talk about that. You want to talk about the end? You want to talk about the beginning? How do you want to talk about this situation?
The beginning was great for a while. It really was. It was a lot of hanging out, collaborating, putting out sketches, doing the things that I was hired for. It's definitely a grind, but that was part of it. The pot was sweetened, so to speak, is what I was offered. It was not this gigantic payday that everybody seemed to think. It was almost no bump, but
You didn't get $50 million.
No, I didn't get. I got about $1,000 extra a year, but it's hard to talk about money, but it was. But I knew that it would help on the road, and he wanted me to be there on more Fridays, and that started being a point of tension because I started making money on the road, and I did say I would be there on more Fridays, but every time I would show up, he wouldn't show up.
Okay.
And I just.
Now, in my opinion, that is a huge issue. Now, if Dave had and he goes on to talk about it here in a minute, but if Dave had something to do, like a sketch to write or like something to work on, basically what it comes down to, and as he explains this, is that they wanted him to come to work whether there was anything to do or not. So he would just basically have to sit around for 8 hours and do nothing. They definitely, and just in my opinion, listening to this whole interview twice now, they definitely didn't make him it wasn't like he was a part of the show. He was just like a side piece that they added. And in my opinion, there were some days where Dave was the show. Okay. Where Crowder was off his game and Dave was really good. And then there was vice versa. There's times where Crowder was really good as well, but you have to give Dave his credit, or you got to give credit where credit's due. There were a lot of times where Dave carried that show. And when Crowder was off for his surgery, or, he was, had to miss a day or whatever, Landau stepped in. Now, I don't believe Landau was as good a host as Crowder. Okay. Crowder can talk for hours. Dave was kind of short to the point. He got to the jokes, he got to the stories, and, this and that, but he was still pretty good. But as you can tell, as this goes on here, he wasn't really like a part of the group. Like they had their core group and then they had Dave. Just from an outsider's perspective.
Said, all right, well, I'm just going to work or go and see my son. And, he's in Detroit. And I said, as long as everything was working out, there was a possibility that they could move there.
Yeah. They meaning your family.
Yes. So about a year went by, and things had gotten more tense. Like things were more restrictive. For example, I had been more censored as things went on, where I couldn't, for example, say the word "cum,"
Okay.
like ejaculate. I
Right.
forgot when I made the joke that was offensive or whatever it was
You could
about.
only eat it. You couldn't say it's going to go in your mouth, not come out of your mouth.
I could eat it with a spoon, or I could say "yummy yum yums" when referring to it, but I could never actually say.
I could eat it with a fork. I could eat it on a ship. I
Yes.
can't finish the rhyme, but you get me.
I could call. I could refer to.
Now, I can see why they wouldn't want him to say come. I think they kind of handled it a little dumb. But yeah, it is a show on YouTube at 9:15 in the morning or 10 a.m. wherever you're at. It's 10 a.m. where I'm at. So I can see why they wouldn't want him to say come. Okay. I think it's a little dumb, but I can see their point of view.
I could go, "Those are nice gutters you have," but I couldn't say that I had the
They're
gutters.
vascular. I'm
Yeah.
very pleased with them these days.
Yeah. Are you still there?
They're
I hope.
back. Yeah.
Good for you. I
Thank
don't
you.
have cum gutters at all.
Shh, don't say that.
Well, I just don't. I'm sorry.
You're not allowed to use that word in this show.
I forgot about the email you sent me.
No, you're not allowed to use the word gutters. Any reference to manual labor is verboten.
I'm sorry. I don't have the cum. And then, it became a little weird because a light was put in where it was his rant button. And
see, this is where I think it gets a little shitty. Okay. Because I felt like the Crowder show was really good when they were going back and forth, and Crowder had a joke and Dave had a joke, and then it was just turned into like this really good back and forth chemistry. Okay. And what he's getting ready to talk about here, I think's a little screwed up.
it was basically a Dave don't talk button.
Wait, so there's literally a light bulb? What color was the light bulb?
There was 4 lights in a row.
There were
and when
3 lights.
I'm serious. And when it was hit, I wasn't supposed to talk. And they
Do you
said,
remember, was it like a regular colored light bulb or was it like red?
it was like a yellow, a
Okay.
pretty bright yellow, like
Okay.
like yield.
So it's like off camera, but in your eyesight.
Yes. And
would he be the one pressing the button, or was there a producer pressing the button?
he would press it.
So like Mr. Burns, like he had a button under his desk or the table, and when it's Steven's turn to talk and Dave needs to shut the F up, he presses this button.
Yes.
How do I get this to happen? Because frankly, we're at 13 minutes in and you're already on my last nerve. This is with Michael Malice.
Aren't you hitting it now? Oh, that's just Zoom doing it. Yeah, he had that. Well, and then I was told that he's like, well, that was always there, and I'm like, no, I would have noticed the light and been told about it. That's
folks. You know how ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online. Well, here's something you might not.
All right, so I don't know. I can see where that would piss Dave off. Like you get going, you get fired up, you feel like you're on a roll, and then all of a sudden this stupid ass light comes on. And you get pissed off about it because you felt like you were onto something, or you feel like you just can't throw your opinion in there, which Crowder is the star of the show. And Dave explains that a little later, but I don't know. I can see Dave's point of view here. I would be pissed off about it, especially if it wasn't there from the beginning. And then Crowder tried to like gaslight him into believing it was there, which I think is just stupid. Like if it wasn't there, dude, just say it wasn't there. So I'm going to get past this. Paid ad.
All together.
go.
It's comfortable, it's mobile, it's versatile, and you feel fresh after wearing it all day. Their commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to RHONE.com/malice. Use promo code malice, you get 20% off. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to rhone.com/malice.
Oh,
Use code
Lord.
malice. It's time to find your corner office comfort. Let's get back to the show. Wait. So you were? It's wait. In all seriousness, it's possible that the bulb was always there, but I mean, it is of no relevance if some light comes on. If you're not informed of the fact that the purpose of this light is to silence you, like
Correct.
if you and I are in a room and a lamp turns on, we're not like, oh crap, Crowder's talking somewhere. Let's just be quiet, quiet.
Well, it's almost literal gaslighting, except with electricity. Because you're like, that wasn't there, and you're like, no, it was. And you're
That's
like,
the
no,
reboot.
I know it wasn't there.
The reboot is it's always been electricity. It was never a gas.
Yeah, it's updated for the 50s.
Yes.
So, and you're like, I know it wasn't there, you know. So
wait, so how were you informed that there is a don't talk light, and what was your reaction?
I was pissed a bit because I know my job. I
Right.
know that he talks a lot. I know that he's the star of the show. I know when to throw him what he needs to be thrown. I know when to sit back. It's what I did with Anthony for years. It's what I did next to Artie. It's what it's what I do. I'm not trying to ever steamroll him.
Right.
It was just, hey, don't be funnier. Don't be, and that's the truth. I mean, it sounds bitter, but I knew it was true because I was pulled aside and I said it, and it was, hey, make sure if you're doing a rant or like you guys are riffing, he gets the last word.
You were told this explicitly?
Yes.
Well, is it that maybe he didn't want to talk over you, so that the show is called Louder with Crowder, but not Loudest with Crowder? So
Yes.
he wants to it's about a 7, but not at a 10. You can
Yes.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's, I don't know. I can see it from both sides, but yeah, I can see where Dave would be a little bit pissed about that because it's like, dude, if we're riffing back and forth and I just happen to have the last word, who cares? It's almost like he was jealous of Dave, that Dave was like funnier. Because to be totally honest with you, Dave was funnier. Crowder was more serious and stern, and Dave kind of leveled him out. And not to say anybody else can't do that, because Crowder's show's been pretty good since it's come back on. I haven't watched it every day like I used to, because usually I listen to it while I'm at work, and I've been busy at work. So, but Nick DiPaolo and the other comedians that he's had on there have been pretty funny. It's still a good show. But I can see where these little like poking and prodding at Dave would start to get annoying. Like, you know what I'm saying? Don't sit and poke and prod. Like, why can't we just have this free type of atmosphere where we just kind of feed off of each other and we both collaborate to make something really good? And I felt like they did that for a while. I mean, I never really could tell there was a whole lot of tension. And it just goes to show you, like, if you have two content creators on a show together, okay, and Elijah Schaefer said something about this. When he worked at the Blaze, and when he left, he said, just because two people are good on camera doesn't mean there isn't shit going on behind the scenes. And I believe that. I mean, I believe that, yeah, they could be good on camera, turn the camera off, and fucking not like each other. And, in my opinion, sounded like this is where this was at towards the end, right before Dave left.
I think that was it. It was all about the title, and I wasn't respecting it, so there needed to be a light. And I had to make sure that, he got the last thing. So even if I did have a funnier joke, I would just leave it out. It was important for the fans to not hear it. I always felt that my job as a comedian was to leave out the good one.
That's it. I don't know. I've never heard of that, to be honest. I mean, I don't feel like that's a thing, but maybe, what do I know? I've never been a co-host.
I've heard it in radio a couple times. Very
Really?
rarely.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have heard of it where it's just the star needs to look like the star. So
Okay.
I guess, you know, it's his show, fine. But I also feel like somebody who's so pro free speech and non-censorship, he was really about censorship. And
Okay.
that bothered me. But you know, he was going through, you know, surgery that was a big deal at the time and stuff. I was fairly free.
Now, I agree with Dave on that. You know, if you're about free speech, you don't want to be censored and you want others to not be censored. Yeah, stop censoring people. I understand you got to have a format to your show. You got to have, you can't be like, it does kind of annoy me when I watch podcasts and you have two people trying to talk over top of each other. I do understand that perspective, but it sounds like Crowder was coming from a different angle, like almost like he could see Dave was funnier and he didn't want Dave to get over more than him because it was his show. So it's crazy. I can see where that would be challenging, especially if you feel like you had a joke lined up, but you couldn't say it. It'd be almost like a fart and not being able to let it go. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. That's the best analogy I could come up with. Cut me some slack.
Forgiving of it, you know. And then about a year in, it was February 2022 for the Super Bowl.
Right after the
And
9/11.
It was right after 9/11.
The nation was healing.
None of us could forget. And I was selling flags. I was making just a mint off of
You're
tiny
making
flags.
a killing.
A
Come on, that's
killing.
money on the table. I was
Yes.
making a killing at ground zero.
Yes.
Dude, this is why you had the light.
I was trying to build a mosque 3 doors down from ground zero. And people were very upset, and I didn't understand why. So these are my beliefs. And so I was plotting a big Patriot Day event, and that was a big day. So I forgot where we were. Oh
We're
yeah,
talking about a year after. The light.
he wanted me to film a special.
Okay.
And
What kind of like a
I'm
special
sorry, he
episode?
didn't. I wanted to. I'm
You
sorry.
wanted to film a special? Okay. Yeah.
Stand-up comedy. So I had decided I was going to buy the equipment and film the special.
So Dave wanted to do a comedy special. He messed up and said that Crowder wanted him to do it, but it was actually Dave wanted to do the comedy special. He buys all the equipment to do the special.
In Dallas, and we were selling out this theater, and he decided he wanted to get back into stand-up, which he had done when he was younger.
Okay.
And he had just been a host since then. So he said, hey, can I jump on and open it, and I'll help promote it. You can help me maybe write some of my stuff, get me back into it, and I'll help promote it. And I said, sure, of course. So we ended up selling out 2 shows, obviously, instead of just 1, because he was helping promote it, and he's a draw. So we went.
Crowder is a draw. Okay. Dave admits that Crowder's a draw. You know, he knows that if Crowder is on the lineup for this stand-up tour, that he's going to make more money. Okay. But the shit that Crowder does once they start touring together is what pisses me off. Because it's kind of shady. Little bit, a good old stab in the back. Kind of a shisty, shitty move.
There, and Matt McClowry was the opener.
He's been on this show as well. If people can look back. Yep.
Brilliant.
Literally autistic comedian Matt McClowry. Very funny.
Literally autistic. Yes.
Yes.
The real deal. The real kind of shooter. And
He's trans too.
Yes, you didn't know.
Dude, he's really passing.
So the first time I watched this, I thought, God, I wish Michael Malice would shut the hell up and let Dave tell the story. But I rewatched it today, and the jokes back and forth are funny. They're absolutely hilarious. So it takes Dave forever to be able to tell this story because Michael won't shut up, but it's still pretty funny.
As a freak.
Yeah, he does a great job. Born a lady, but totally total candlelight vigil. And yeah, he went up and got a standing ovation after Steven, and Steven kind of saw we were friends. And after that, I pulled Steven aside, and Steven couldn't do the Monday show, and I said, could Matt come in and co-host with me? He said, yeah. So now it's Super Bowl Sunday. The whole special went great. I paid everybody to film it except for one other person, Tim, who was there to film Steven's set. And I was very looking forward to the special coming out. And Monday or Sunday had rolled around, and I get a call from the showrunner that said Matt's not allowed to do the show.
How did they tell you? Like literally what they?
So basically, Crowder is mean to autistic people. Nah, I'm just kidding. This part is kind of fucked up, though. I mean, he tells Dave this dude can come on the show, and then what happens here is, in my opinion, childish. Like, I don't understand why he acts like, unless he's got a perfectly good explanation as to why he acts like a fucking child.
Say
via text, it was just Matt's not allowed. Matt can. It's been like decided, something like that. Matt, I can find the text,
but the word is allowed. It's not like we don't have time or won't fit the schedule. The word was
correct.
allowed.
Matt's
or
not allowed
permitted
to
or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, to do the show on Monday.
Was there any explanation at all?
No.
Okay.
So I said, that's odd. I already asked Steven, and he said it was okay.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, that's weird. I must have got mixed messages. So I just texted Steven and said, hey, I just talked to the showrunner. I just want to make sure it's still cool that Matt comes in. And he texted me something back along the lines of, what's done is done.
Oh. Okay.
And I said,
what does that mean? It's your show. Wait,
yes.
maybe he had a light, and when the light went on, decision making ceases. See, you have the yellow light, he's got the red light in his house. It's lights all the way up.
It's true. Maybe when I asked him, he was seeing a green light.
Yes, you idiot.
Yeah, I know.
This is how show business works. It's
what it is, the business of show, and
yes.
I am not paying attention to the
How
light.
are you going to show things without lights? You're going to show them in the dark. That makes no sense.
Very little sense.
Yes.
And
unless
really,
it's a movie, I guess.
Dave definitely takes some really deep digs at Crowder here. And some of them are funny, but I'm sitting here thinking, like, how's it going to piss Crowder off, But I'll say this, throughout this whole thing, I don't think Crowder's going to respond. And that's kind of why I waited till tonight, because I wanted to see if Crowder was going to respond. And I was just going to play a couple clips from here and then talk, play a little bit from what Crowder would say back. But I don't think Crowder will address this at all. He'll completely ignore it.
I guess that's knowing things in the dark. Well, I guess this is why I'm sitting here in my demon chair instead of in a nice studio.
It's fine blurring out my background so nobody knows what this hellish life is.
This opium den.
Yeah, it really is. There's sadness behind me. I've asked everybody
around you and inside you.
There's a lot of mothers going to hell behind me.
So he just says, what's done is done.
Yeah, and I said, what does that mean? It's your show, which is ironic. That's what he said. And my phone rings, and I don't want to go greatly into the conversation between us, but it was. He's like, do you still want to be on Louder with Crowder? And I said, not at the moment. And he starts going off on me, and now there's a ton of people in my apartment who can hear it.
Wait, he's literally raising his voice?
He's screaming at me.
Okay, so literally raising his voice, not just being stern, like to the point where it's audible.
It's audible, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, it's started stern, but then it got into telling me that he owns me, and
in those words.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. He owns me, and once you say,
it must have been on clearance. I mean, no one.
I was on sale, baby.
Yeah, that's not good. You're gonna say, "I own you, Dave. I own you." No, Dave fucking works for you. You don't own Dave. We ain't buying slaves around here, all right? So Landau is your coworker or your employee, but he's not your fucking slave. So if that part of the story is true, that's annoying. Like, come on, man. You can't treat people like that, in a situation, and I understand Crowder's running his own business. He's got a lot of pressure built up on him. But dude, you got to know how to talk to people. You can't let. Now, in my opinion, Dave handled it a lot better than I would have. Because the first time you yell at me and you say you own me, I would probably tell you to go fuck yourself and you would never see me again. Or if you did see me, I'd be up there to punch you in the face. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yelling at you and and it was over something so stupid. Like, if you didn't want the guy to come on the show, fine. Tell him when he asked you that. And it would have been handled like, I don't know. I thought that was a shitty way to handle it. But Dave, in my opinion, handled it pretty well. A lot better than I would have.
Neither of us can even reach the top shelf, let alone sit on it.
No. I was in a basket with a bunch of balls. He I was in a looted Walmart. Yeah, it was just it was venomous, and I don't know what he was going through at that point, and I just was like, dude, it was all this projection coming at me.
Wait,
and
let's slow down. Let's slow down because you're a comic, right?
Yes.
So I'm obviously not a comedian, but there have been many moments in my life when things are so surreal that I could, even if they're disturbing to experience, on some level, I could be like, this is hilarious. Not hilarious, but like, yeah, no, hilarious. Like, this is just in the terms of absurdity. Like, if someone is sitting there screaming at me, I own you. It's just like there's no Venn diagram in my background between that and reality, other than that brief period when I was a slave in Libya. But we don't talk.
Now, that type of language from Crowder is enough to get his ass slapped. I mean, that's just my opinion. Like, you raise your voice, you tell me that you own me. Like, I don't know. That's not a good way to, handle the situation. But in that situation, I think Dave should have pushed back, and maybe he did, and he's just not sharing it. But Dave, with just 5 minutes of meeting Dave, back to when my wife and I went to one of his comedy shows. He seems real laid back, real easygoing. He wasn't rushing the crowd like when they were trying to get autographs and pictures, and really nice guy. And I'm sure he's a nice guy to a certain point outside, of that atmosphere as well, but I don't know. He handled it a lot better than what I would have, because I would have told Crowder to go fuck himself.
About that as much anymore after the Obama administration.
I
So
was once a slave. I made mugs for a talk show. Go on.
Was this the first time he had yelled at you?
In that way, yes, where it had come out where I saw a different person that I had heard rumors about.
Had Anthony Cumia ever yelled at you like that?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. Anthony and I never even looked at each other in a bad way.
Okay. So
even when I left the show, I've never said a bad word about him, and likewise.
I mean, I yelled at you, but that was just for my own. I didn't say I owned you. I said I don't want you. It's not the same.
No.
I said I disown you.
I was trying to hug you at the time, and I guess it wasn't the right situation.
Well, we were on a precipice.
I mean, it hurt, but I feel like it was half my fault.
Good, you've learned. the gaslighting worked. It's your fault.
Yeah, I've always learned that. Ever since Mother taught me as a boy, it's mostly my fault.
This is why mommy and daddy can't live together. It's because you're too dumb and ugly.
That's right.
And neither of us wants you.
Listen, we're leaving, but it's just because of you.
Yeah, we still love each other very much.
Do you see the pictures before you, how we're together? Well, do you see how the ones with you?
So But I mean, you must. So let's just live in this moment for a bit because it's just very jarring to me, right? So you're already kind of ticked that your buddy Matt, who had a good audience reaction that Steven was privy to, Steven had said, "Hey, have him on the show." To your face that he's allowed on. So that, and then just to be kind of for Matt to be dismissed summarily, he's got to suck. Did you have the opportunity to even tell Matt he's pulled before this whole interaction happened?
No, but Matt was very well. One, Matt could hear, and also
Matt was there.
Yeah, Matt was in the room.
Matt
Yeah,
was
and
in the
also
room.
he's he's very intelligent. He read the situation immediately and kind of could read it the night before because Matt did very well.
But here's the other thing. Sorry to interrupt you. Matt isn't like, hey, I got this buddy back in Detroit. He should be your show. Steven saw firsthand that Matt is a professional comedian and responded well to Steven's same audience. So this isn't like some hearsay thing. I got this great buddy. We went to high school together. You should have him on.
No, he got a standing ovation as an opener in 2 shows in front of him.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So as he's yelling, like, what is going through your head?
The only thing bothered me just because I don't like being talked to like that.
Yeah, who does?
At all.
Right?
But it was comical in a lot of ways because it's just, I understand that there's going to be a touch of narcissism to anybody who's sort of in that field. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
But
going humorous, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was so over the top that I was trying not to laugh. And then he said Matt couldn't do his closing bit, which was killer because it was too dirty. And you've seen
wait, hold on. He couldn't do the closing bit on stage?
If we were going to tour together in the future, Matt couldn't do his closing bit on stage. Somehow that comes up. So you could tell there was this projection.
So basically, Crowder joins Dave's like special. Wants Dave to write some of his material. Goes out. They have a good show. They sell out 2 shows. Okay, they have a good show. Dave wants to bring his comedian buddy onto the show, onto Louder with Crowder. Crowder agrees. And then tells the showrunner to call Dave and tell him never mind, instead of handling it himself, which, in my opinion, that's a bitch move. He should have, called Dave man to man and said, hey, man, I got to change of heart. Don't really want him on the show. And Dave, I think he mentions here in a minute that he thinks the reason Crowder didn't want this guy, Matt, on the show is because Matt was funnier than him. But and then now on top of not wanting this guy on Louder with Crowder, Crowder's trying to edit this guy's act, the opening act, because he thinks it's too dirty. It's like, dude, you're making a whole lot of demands for, being on a show that you weren't originally, you weren't originally supposed to be with Dave, like doing tours. And I could tell when they started like touring together, and Dave talks about it here in a minute, where he talks about how they weren't promoting his shows, which, they were promoting his shows. But I could tell, like, when Dave and Crowder would go together and do shows, it was a much bigger deal. Like, it was like this huge deal. And I could tell there was tension in the room when they would talk about it on air, because and you're about to find out, there was some shady shit going on behind the scenes. Crowder trying to like edit their shows and like try to get them to like censor their speech a little bit, which I find that fucking weird since you're so pro free speech.
Of how he was angry of how well that bit did.
Wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I need to linger on this for a moment because this is kind of surprising to me. He told you to tell your friend who you don't own that if he's going to tour with you, there is a joke that is the closing joke. You close on the strong joke. You don't close on, whatever, like any of your material.
Yes.
And you let him know he can't end on.
So it's the closing joke. Everybody knows that the closing joke is the best joke, you know? And what should I go ahead and explain here? But that is absolutely ridiculous. That's like basically making the guy change his whole routine and to come up with something completely different at the end and still be effective. Like, I don't know. Crowder Crowder was being awfully demanding, almost like a boy, like a child.
The closer that kills, that gets standing ovations.
That's the truest to him about being a high school wrestler.
But so he can't. But it's not like this. But I'd bring the joke. It's not like this joke is a Nazi joke, endorsing lynching or endorsing like something horrifically offensive.
Oh no, that's
Right.
more Stevens. But
I'm just clarifying for the audience. It's like it's not like he's saying, "Hey, if I'm."
Did you catch that? Malice said it's not a Nazi joke or anything like super offensive or racist or anything, and Dave said, "Nah, that's more along the lines of Crowder." That's one of those little digs I'm telling you about.
I'm touring with this guy, this joke makes it look like I'm, kind of I endorse slavery or something crazy like that. That's not what he's saying.
Not at all. The joke
Okay.
is actually, if I could be
Go ahead.
specific,
Sorry,
it's
Matt.
about. No. It's honestly just a joke about how when he played, football, or when he was a high school wrestler, he would come out to the song "A Whole Lot of Love." That was their song before they would mount boys on all fours, and it was like, essentially like, oh look, they forfeited again, undefeated season, and then
Yeah.
he talks about how and it goes into this whole thing about how he doesn't like sports, and whenever you tell a group of guys that, they look at you like you took a cock out of your mouth to say it, and it's like just how and it's about him dealing with Asperger's, but also coming from a family of athletes. So
Okay.
it's this very true
And personal.
very personal, very real, not filthy, not gratuitous, just this very honest story. So he went into that.
So I'm going to read one of the comments that came in on my YouTube page. Nicholas says, "Sadly, I wish Dave shared this before he announces he has a new show. Now it's stirring up controversy to get people to follow and watch his new show." So I agree with you a little bit. I messaged Dave personally on Instagram when Crowder was getting ready to start his show, and I knew Dave wasn't going to be on it. And I talked to him about it, and he just said, "I can't say anything about it. Like I can't say nothing about it. I can't answer any of your questions." He's very professional. And as soon as he did that, though, I knew something was wrong. So I think Dave waited till like the dust settled and he decided to like, hey, I would rather tell this story than there's a bunch of rumors around. Do I feel like it was the right approach? Nah, not really. I don't think this was a good idea. I mean, I understand why he did it. And I'm going to support, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to support Dave Landau still, and I'm going to support Steven Crowder. Doesn't mean I necessarily have to agree with them. If I agreed with everything they said, I'd probably, be a loser, So they're two grown adults that had some disagreements, and it was kind of piss poor timing and a piss poor idea. But like I said, I understand why he did it. And then Nicholas also said, "I bet he didn't say I own you. I bet he said I have made you," something along those lines. Brought him in on the show, and now Dave is making money on the road. First time in his life. Dave's words. Very true. I agree with you. Nicholas. I mean, I didn't know who Dave was until Dave came on Louder with Crowder. So I can see both sides. But if Crowder said some shit along the lines of "I own you," yeah, I got a problem with that. Because all it takes is for a little bit of recognition for somebody to get a break. Okay? And maybe they just didn't have the opportunity. They got the opportunity, and then, you know, I don't know. You know, Dave does owe, in my opinion, him a debt of gratitude, but you can't treat him like shit. And that's just my honest opinion. You can't treat a guy like shit and expect him to be happy to work for you. And also, you know, which we'll find out later on in this interview, you can't expect him to work. You know, money was an issue. Let's put it that way.
Bad. And then he goes into.
Did he give you a reason why he can't do that joke?
He said it was too dirty.
But it's not like you have kids at these, like your material. A lot of your material is very dark and very appropriate for kids, right?
100%.
When you say a good, let's be conservative, what 30% is like kids should not be hearing these jokes?
100. Yeah, absolutely.
Easily.
Well,
Okay.
And he would say stuff to me before shows of like, "Let's keep it clean." Which, when you're me, you're like, "What the." You're just holding it in. Like, why? Like, this has been me for 20 years. You skipped a decade, and you're gonna tell me keep it clean. And I'm like, yeah, let me do that for you. Let me just give up on what I do in my own craft. Because
right.
Yeah, you feel like, because that's kind of what comics do when they can't do well. And he can do well. It's his audience. And it's not that he's going to do poorly. It's just an insecurity to go, you know, you keep it clean. Don't do it's pathetic. It's not necessary. You know, it's not
So there Crowder is again, you know, trying to censor Dave's comedy show. Now, this isn't even Crowder's show. Like, this is Dave's comedy show. Now, Crowder was a bigger draw, made Dave a lot of money. But for him to get in and start putting his hands in it and tell them that they couldn't tell certain jokes, or that, oh, when you go out there tonight, remember to keep it clean. It's like, fuck you, buddy. You know, like I when I went and seen Dave, his jokes were raunchy. His jokes were kind of dark humor. I personally enjoyed them. Now, if Dave would have got out there and sang nursery rhymes, didn't say any cuss words, and acted like some kind of woke comedian, I'd have probably gave him a piss poor review. You know, comedians are offensive. Comedians tell offensive jokes. They cuss a lot. I like that. You know, and so for Crowder to come and say, hey, you know, tone it down a little bit, I can see where Dave would be like, fuck you, buddy. Like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And if you don't like it, just don't tour with me. And I think maybe Dave should have said, hey, dude, right then and there, hey, this is the way I do my comedy. If you don't like it, then I'll tour by myself. Like, it's almost like Crowder like invited himself and then wanted complete control. And it don't fucking work like that. But in Crowder's world, I feel like, you know, kind of does work like that. And if not, then he'll just act like a jerk, treat you like shit.
He doesn't need to do that.
Is that just him putting his you know what on the table kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's unnecessary. He's going to do fine. And that's what I never got. It's like, why swing your dick around when it's not necessary?
Okay.
So in that, you know, he then, this very oddly telling thing, he's like, this is why you don't have any friends. And I was like, what are you, like,
Wait,
literally,
he said that?
Yeah. And in the next room.
In all fairness, I had been texting him that.
Oh, well, I wish you would have told me.
I said, I am so sick of Landau. He does 0 numbers on my show. The guy's never funny, and he can't keep it clean. And by clean, I mean his underwear.
And he will not pay attention to the cum light, which is what I call it. It's the gutters light.
Yes.
And
the nice pearly white.
Yes. And it was such an odd thing though to say that, because I'm like,
you have no friends?
Yeah, and I was like, listen, I have plenty. They're just dead.
Yeah.
And no, it's funny because I'm like, no, I literally, everybody who grew up next door to me, like the godfather of my son, grew up in the house behind me. I've never lost a friend.
Wait, I'm sorry. What is okay? I'm this is where
so
my
weird.
autism is coming in. When he says this is why you don't have any friends, What is this referring to? Not being clean?
I guess this is because I was kind of giggling.
Oh,
Like,
then
I'm
you weren't taking
sure.
it seriously enough because he was,
Yeah.
from your perspective, being so over the top.
Yes, and I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure the phone call was recorded, so we can always hear it. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I'm just saying that he legitimately records his phone calls.
Okay.
Crowder records every phone call. Now, I didn't think that was that weird with the Daily Wire stuff. Okay, there was contract negotiations going on. They were going to talk about them on the phone. He recorded the conversation. In my opinion, not fucking weird. The weird part was sharing them on his show, which at the time, I really didn't give a shit. I felt like Crowder was being dramatic. Daily Wire was being dramatic, especially Candace Owens. The shit that came out of Candace Owens' mouth was immature and just fucking plain out stupid. She sounded like an idiot on Tim Pool's show. But looking back on it, she was right on a few issues. And when you look back on it, especially after this podcast and the stuff they talk about later on, I might make this like a two-part live stream and do the rest of it tomorrow night. But yeah, I mean, once we get through all this and you hear what he has to say about Daily Wire, it makes Crowder look pretty bad. And like I said in the beginning, I'm still going to watch Crowder. Okay? I'm not going to not watch Crowder. I mean, I've been watching him for a while, and it's not going to change my mind. So, but yeah, I don't know. Some of the shit that Dave talks about here is crazy. I mean, I've heard stories, just like he said, I've heard stories about Crowder being a little hard to work with, but some of this shit is like, in my opinion, kind of right on the edge of lefty type of behavior.
Well, that's why he has more friends than you. You know we're recording this, right?
No. Why wouldn't you said this was a call between friends. Why would you do this?
I would never refer to myself as your friend in any context.
What?
I own you.
You told me that this was something that. Why would I share this information publicly? I could get in trouble. Do you know that he does some sort of karate?
Oh, shit. Talking about Crowder and his jiu-jitsu. Oh, shit.
He could hurt me with karate chops.
Or break a board.
He could break a board.
Yeah.
He could put on an outfit, and in that time, I could get in my car and leave.
Ever think about that?
Yeah, you ever think about while you're putting on your outfit, I might have time to go?
Folks, Michael Malice here, podcaster.
Oh, Michael Malice and his ads. So I'm going to say this, and I'll probably get like copyrighted for playing this whole podcast and reacting to it. I don't know. I don't really fucking care, to be totally honest with you. But Michael Malice claims to be this like anarchist. Okay. He sells books about anarchy. And then he also promotes underwear. And he has like all these ads on his show. He's an anarchist, but is he an anarchist capitalist? Well, what the fuck is he? Because I don't pay attention to Michael Malice. I've seen him a few times on Tim Pool's show. He was on a couple other shows, and I just don't like what he has to say. I think he's a fucking goofball. And he's all right in this episode. I mean, maybe I should cut him a little bit of slack. But he's another one of these guys that promotes Blair White. So I ain't going to cut him a whole lot of slack because I don't fucking like Blair White. But anyway, I'm going to fast forward this fucking underwear ad because I don't think anybody wants to really see Michael Malice in fucking modeling underwear, which is just, it's fucking weird, man.
Zeobiotics for sponsoring this episode, and my apologies for the drunken production work. So So okay, I'd say, so my mom is like this. When she's uncomfortable, she starts like giggling and laughing, and it's actually kind of really hilarious because there's been because my mom is tough, but there's situations where that just obviously makes it infinitely worse, because if someone's screaming and the person just is awkwardly laughing, it feels like you're laughing at them as opposed to laughing at the situation.
Yes, and it's so odd because like I considered it's still in a way like he was like my friend, and that's why I even feel odd talking about it. But it has to like come out somehow because when you start getting treated like that, you're like, okay, well,
Well, I'll say this, Dave. He's definitely not your friend anymore. After this video, I don't think you guys are going to be friends. But, you ain't going to be buddy-buddy anymore. And maybe you want it that way, and that's fine. But in my personal opinion, it's sad. I never wanted to see this relationship between you and Crowder end like this. Like I've said several times, you guys have made a solid team. You made the show more entertaining. Crowder brought more of the facts and it kind of leveled itself out. And then you had goofy ass Gerald, which it was funny when both of you just ragged on him, which was great. Now Gerald's like CEO and now super gay. Gerald's like, he went from kind of gay to super gay. But anyway.
he's not looking back to my entire track record of my life of like, I don't talk about my friends. I don't attack my friends. I do have friends from when I was a little kid. I don't treat my employees like shit. I don't have the turnover rate of an opium den. You know what I mean? It's like it's been a difficult time, and all of a sudden I had a really good night and I had a decent year of stand up, and my agent came there. And this is another thing, I guess, I'm just kind of adding on, where my agent had come there, and the whole year I was like, look, he kind of wants me to be there on Fridays, even though he's not showing up. And my agent he's this gay Cuban dude who was like, well, if you're working with me, you need to be working. So he would just always book my shows out. But then all of a sudden,
Wait, so how many times did he no show on a Friday before you were like, okay, this is ridiculous?
probably 8 or 9.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, so like literally never he's there.
So Crowder wanted Dave to be there on Fridays, even if he didn't have any work to do, which comes out a little bit later. But he wanted him to be there, even if he didn't have work to do. And Crowder made it sound like he was going to be there so that they could work on things. Crowder never showed up. So that would be super annoying, in my opinion. Like I would personally be annoyed with that. Like, dude, if you want to work on stuff, you want to make the show better, you want to do better skits, you want to write better skits, perform, have better performances in the skits. Let's do something. You want me to be here on Friday? Let's actually work. But, it's just crazy. I would find that personally offensive. I would be pissed about that.
On Friday.
No.
But you're just sitting. Are you just sitting there writing, twiddling your, like, literally? What are you doing?
No, we would make our own sketches, like Moses and this Moses sketch, like Candy Ass was one, some other stuff. But eventually, we couldn't get them greenlit, so we just kind of weren't doing anything. So I was just like, my family's not there, my kid's not there, and enough is enough, and I'm going.
Wait, so did you at some point like decide, hey, instead of me coming into the office, let me call to see if Steven's there, so I don't have to waste the trip?
So if you guys, they talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the podcast, but Dave's family is still living in Detroit. Okay. Dave wanted to do stand up on the weekends, and he also wanted to have free time to go see his, wife and kid. And, the Louder with Crowder show is Monday through Thursday. So they don't even have a show on Friday. And, they still wanted him to be at work, which screws up his stand up routine, because if he's there from let's say, 9 to 5 or 7 to 3 or whatever, it messes up his weekend. Like, he'd have to catch a flight and go back home, see his kid, or, you know, he could hope to like plan some, comedy shows on Friday, but it would be pulling it. It would be tight if he had to get on a plane and go somewhere. So it would have to be like local places. So I can understand Dave's approach here, like he being pissed off about it. It'd be different if he had like work to do, but they just wanted him. It was almost like Crowder was jealous of him making extra money on the side.
They would decide on the day, and Gerald would say like, look, even if we're not going to be there, we need you there, even if you're just going to sit there and do nothing. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that at all.
Right, they said that explicitly, that even if we're not, who's Gerald? Is he Steven's producer?
He's the CEO now, but he was one of the co-hosts.
Okay, so
second chair.
Okay, so
Gerald is gay. Nah, Gerald's all right. I don't know. I would have done the same thing that Dave said. Like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Like I said, I think it was a jealousy thing because Landau started to get some popularity. He started to gain some traction. He started to create a fan base. He was making money on the road. And Crowder's like, nah, we ain't going to let you do that. We want you in the office, even if there ain't shit to do. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Just sit around all day? He could write like some skits or whatever, but like as you find out as we go through this podcast, most of his skits were getting rejected. They talk about, a lot of them didn't get the green light, which means they were rejected. So why the fuck would he waste a bunch of time writing a show or writing skits that's just going to get rejected? I mean, I don't know. I guess like I said, I wouldn't do it, but I don't know. I would be super pissed about it. It'd be annoying.
he said to you, even explicitly, even if we're not there, we need you there.
Yes.
But I mean, if anyone's needed there, it's him. It's his show. You're not needed. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but you're literally not needed there ever. Like, it's his
Correct.
show. He's the one who is needed to be there to be a show. If you're missing, it's fine. If he's missing, it's a problem because it's Steven's show.
Yes, he's killing it on Rumble without me. It's fine. I knew that. That's the truth, though. That's the reality. And I kept saying like, no, I'm gonna go live my life. That was the problem. Is like, dude, I'm making money. I'm going on the road. I'm making money for the first time
and building an audience.
And I'm making.
That's the other thing. Like, I've seen. Sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, people. I just want to talk about this a little slower. People really get off. I'm not trying to be cute. The people you see on your screens, when you see them live and in person, it's a very different experience. And I've done that myself. Like, I've gone to see people I like, and it's like, it's so much fun when you go, oh, there they are. It's such a, especially after COVID, to see them live and in person. It's very, very exciting. And you love to have an excuse to throw them money with a ticket and support them.
Yes. And it's something that I've really not experienced. I mean, I would have a bit of that after being on Compound. But most of my entire career was going to the middle of nowhere or wherever I was booked and getting an audience to like me.
Yeah.
So to finally have an audience, it was the first time in my life, and I was really grateful for it. You just go to these places, and there's people who were wearing, shirts with my face on them, and it was exciting. And
how ugly do you have to be if you want to have Landau on your shirt to distract from your mug?
Some of them were gross. Talk about but you get a pretty one. Occasionally you get a pretty girl, and I'd be like, okay, why are you like me? But yeah, no.
I hope when you saw that shirt she's wearing, you go, I own you.
I would be like, that's mine. And I'd be looking at them.
Okay, so they told you explicitly, we need you here on Fridays, even if we're not here, and you said, I'm not doing that.
And I never agreed to it. I agreed to some, and it was the same as.
Was it the point of contention?
Big time.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Big time it was. And then.
So this was one of their biggest issues. So, and like I said, I definitely see Dave's side of it. I don't really see Crowder's side. I think there was major jealousy going on. Like Dave was making extra money on the side, and unless Crowder comes out and like disputes this over the next couple days, I'm going to take this as the truth because I mean, if it's not true, I mean, in my opinion, somebody says something to me that's not true, I'm going to come out and defend myself.
But my agent wasn't going to stop booking me anyway.
Okay.
So I was getting good money. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. But then Steven wanted to do a tour together.
Okay.
So
This is circa when?
this is shortly after the Dallas show in 2022.
Okay. So like early 2022.
So we did a couple of shows that were 50-50.
Wait, I'm sorry. There's an important part here that I think we skipped over. If someone boots my friend from their show, which is their prerogative, it's their show, right?
Yeah.
And then they call me up screaming.
Mm-hmm.
The next time I see them, it's going to be weird, I would imagine. Like, what happened after that? Like, how did that resolve, and how did you see him next time? Did you have to smile and nod?
No, I came in and he said, what was it? He apologized in a weird way. It was, you asked me in a weird way, is what he said. And I said, how? And he said, you asked me in front of a lot of people in the green room. And I said, it was just me and you. And he's like,
well,
well,
it's not accurate. What he said.
No, it's just not accurate. But it was more like I was so used to the gaslighting at this point that I was like, what? Okay. I'm like, but he did a great job. And he's like, well, I didn't know him. And I just saw how he did in front of the crowd. So I don't know how he would have been on radio. And I was like, you could have just said no.
Right.
And
Or you
he's
could have
like,
tried them out once. I mean, a lot of these shows work well when they have like a big roster of, because it makes the host look better. I mean, Gutfeld does this very phenomenally. Red Eye, which, you were on Red Eye as well, weren't you?
yes.
Yeah, I agree with Dave and Malice here. It could have been easy, like the whole argument, the whole dispute could have been a lot simpler. Like Crowder, just say no. You don't want that guy on. And it could have just been done with. But you said yes, then you said no, and then you blew up on him, which is it's just immature behavior.
Look how many people came out of Red Eye. Me, you, Tim Dillon, Andrew Schultz. Like, there's just no shortage of people who, Kaylee McEnany, Bill Schultz. Just so many people came out of that show.
Yes. So it was just a matter of, and I know Matt's great because I've had him on Anthony's show. He did that a ton of times and people loved him. And that's a crowd of people who want to hate you.
Right.
So it was something that I knew would work. But then he never.
And I'm sorry, like he's like, this is no disrespect to Matt, and he is the perfect sideshow because he's a freak, and he knows he's a freak. Like, that's a lot of his humor. It's like, look, I'm wired completely differently from you guys. I'm basically an alien. Like, let's laugh at it together.
And he's going to land something in the middle of what we're talking about that we're not going to see.
Right, because his brain literally works differently than ours does.
Absolutely,
and he's perfectly happy being the punchline.
Yep. Which is the best part. I mean, if you can't take a joke, why be there? And that's very difficult, with Steven. And Matt ended up touring. He ended up hosting the shows. I took care of him myself out of pocket. And we ended up doing this tour together. Now, the first couple of shows were 50-50. And then the money changed. And all of a sudden, I noticed that I wasn't allowed to promote my own shows on Crowder unless it was behind the paywall or right before.
How were you told that you're not allowed to promote your show?
Like, the shows would start, and 2 minutes before showtime, somebody would walk up to me and go, hey, you can't promote your show today.
There was never a reason given.
Now, I don't necessarily agree with this, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I watched Crowder's show pretty much every day. I will say that the shows that Crowder was in, they promoted it a lot more. Like, they pushed it a lot more. And the shows that Dave was in, they still mentioned it every time they introduced him. So I don't know what Dave's talking about here. I don't know what he was trying to get at, but his shows were promoted. Now, was he catching a bunch of flack behind the scenes? Possibly, yes. But his shows were promoted. I can't deny that. That is something that I personally witnessed every day that I watched the show.
No, it was more to, it was like demeaning. So you'd be like, oh, thanks. Great.
Was the okay? Let me play devil's advocate. Was
Okay.
it the kind of thing when you were on the show, you would just use any excuse to bring up your show to promote it? So they wanted to kind of pull back on that?
No, never once. He just wanted to promote his shows that we were both on together, or the ones that he started doing in clubs, which I realized that my agent was booking, that even though I had asked my agent if he started repping Steven, I was never given a straight answer until obviously I figured out that that night in Dallas, my agent had flown there to sign Steven, and
Wow.
now
Okay.
it was his bigger client. And I was told by him that he was really there. He's like, and even when I asked him at first, he's like, sign who? What do you mean work with them? I don't know what you mean work with them. What? You know, it was sort of this very roundabout way until I realized, like, I keep getting fucked here, and I keep getting like less. I never get a bump and raise, and now things started getting progressively worse, where
Okay.
I could never promote my shows. Sudden,
I don't agree with that last part. Never promoted shows, but that is a shitty, snaky type of move. It's a kind of a dirt bag type of move. Like you go behind Dave's back, and I blame the agent too. The agent was kind of shitty in this situation too. The agent wants to sign Crowder. Crowder had to have initiated it somehow. And the agent signs Crowder, and then they don't tell Dave about it. And they're still doing shows together. And here, all of a sudden, Crowder's getting different shows by himself. But he's pissed off when Dave has shows by himself and doesn't show up on Fridays to do nothing. So I don't know. That's fucking wild. So I would find that personally offensive if my agent went behind my back, which I've never had an agent. I've never been anywhere close to having an agent. Somebody sign me someday. Look at this. Look at this mug. This is star potential right in front of your face. Yeah, I'm old. Yeah, I'm got gray in my beard, but I'm still good looking, damn it. Sign me to a contract. Then just don't go behind my back and sign somebody else that's bigger than me. No, but in all seriousness, like I can see where this would. I'd get Dave. If you are listening, Dave, if you listen to this, get a new agent. Your agent is a fucking dirtball. Yeah, get you a new agent, buddy.
it got really bad to the point where my agent was yelling at me, and he'll watch this and get pissed, and I don't give a shit. But he would. It
Would
got
he
to the
literally
point,
raise his voice? Also,
my agent was screaming at me, and that's when he and I fired him once, and it was already, he was screaming at me in my car. He's like, go in there and do your job. And I go, I am doing my job. I go, that's the problem, is I've always done my job. There's no complaints from the company that I don't do my job. That's the
right.
thing. The only complaint I ever had was that I fell asleep a couple times, but it wasn't because I was up all night doing below and banging whores. It's because I write for the show. Or it was that I was late, which guilty. And I'll say that because they wanted me there at 7 o'clock or 7:15 or
AM.
5:15. Yeah.
5:15.
Yeah, it would depend on what they wanted to do that day. And I couldn't
Okay.
figure out, like, I couldn't get into a rhythm of it. And they kept changing what they wanted to do, like what time, when to come in, what the thing was, what the job was, what the this, the that, and if you text me at 11 o'clock at night to write something, I'm going to be up until 1, maybe 2 writing it. If you text me at 6 o'clock and you want me there at 7, well, I need to write it. So I'm not going to get there until 8:15, but I don't go live until 9:15. but I wasn't treated as talent. I was kind of treated like, like more of a 9 to 5 employee,
Yeah.
which I had zero interest in being.
Right.
Even though I didn't mind being a 24/7 employee, though, if that makes sense. I don't
Yes.
mind, always pitching the show. I had, ads made every day. I always was pumping it. I always talked about it. I always said good things. I met every fan that went to every show. I didn't mind being a 24/7 employee, but you want me to be there 9 to 5, and then you also want me to be there at 9 p.m. when you need me, and then you want me to be there at 6 a.m. when you need me. It's like, that's not what I'm there for.
Right.
I'm there to be your sidekick, which is fine, and then I'm there to write the things you want me to write, and it's cool, it's fine. But it was always, for somebody who always uses the term moving the goalpost, that's all it became. So we began touring together, and yes, it was very.
Now, I can understand that things change. Shit changes. You could come into work, like I could get a phone call tonight. Now, it's highly unlikely. But when I worked production for a manufacturing company, shit changed all the time. I said there would be some days where I'd have to work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, depending on where I was working, what I was doing. So shit changed a lot. So I can understand, but I can understand Crowder's perspective on this, but I can also understand Dave's. Like if you message him at 6 in the morning and say, "Hey, I need you to write something," dude, you got to give him time to write it. Like he's got to get ready, like to come in, like shower and all that shit. He's got to drive there. He's got to actually write what you want him to write. So you can't be mad if he shows up at 8:15. Like, I don't know. It just seems like a control issue.
Good money, and I paid Matt very well, but it always became something where nothing feels good, even if you're making money, if you're being treated like you don't deserve it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So the whole time it felt like this is everything that I have and it's being given to you. So even the whole tour, you just feel kind of like shit.
Mm.
And it doesn't really matter. You've just you're like, I'd rather just go back to clubs. I don't care. And we go on break in July.
July 2022.
This is July 2022. And we got a new showrunner who was doing our tour at the time named Jeff, a good guy. And I get back from break, and at this time, I wouldn't go into anything about Steven's family, and I wouldn't want him to go anything about mine either, obviously. But somebody in my family was very, very sick and had been battling something for a while, seriously, and he knew that. And I came back, and he
Yeah,
gave
they had an
me
ugly, talentless family member
yes, and it was
who's
just
probably a lesbian.
it's me, and I'll tell you, no matter how much work is done on this face,
This mug.
yeah, God has cursed me. That's why they wanted to change Mug Club. It was just any association, and so I get back, and the first thing I do is I get brought to lunch, and I get presented with this option with a new contract.
Now, Dave, before you talk about your contract and the importance of
Oh, Malice and his stupid ass ads. But I'm going to go through this part and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and do the rest of this tomorrow. I'm going to make this a 2-part live stream. I'm going to do it early tomorrow.
My old contract is terminated.
Okay, officially.
It's officially terminated as of August 2022.
Mhm.
And my new choice is I have to be there Monday through Friday. I got to probably look at the stipulations if you want me to pull it up real quick.
Yeah, pull it up.
Yeah, I can send one to you.
So Dave does a Crowder here and pulls out the contract. And then eventually, you'll see here in a second, he sends it to Malice. And then they start reading it out loud. Yeah.
It's but it was And I can even just read it. It's just,
Yeah, read it. Yeah.
and this was sent to my agent, and it's like, this is just simply the contract. It was, William, just need a yes. I agree on all the revised items from Dave, and this is what Jeff showed me at lunch. And it was, once I get with our legal team on the revised contract below, it stays on salary, so no extra money. Moves to Texas, moves his family to Texas by the new year, first week
Wait,
of
so
January.
you are, I'm sorry, part of your contract, a
Mhm.
proposed contract, was that your family has to be moved across state lines.
Correct.
So when I first watched this, I thought like the stipulations in the contract, like the original contract, is that Crowder and them would pay for Dave's family to move to Texas, and Dave wanted to go. Like that's something he wanted in the contract. And I'm like, okay, I can see, getting a little bit annoyed, flying back and forth from Texas to, Detroit, or driving, however he was doing it. Pretty much, probably flying, but it'd be a long fucking drive. I could see where he would, be a little annoyed with having to do all that, but it was the opposite way. It was the opposite. Dave didn't want to move, and Crowder wanted him to move to Texas. And you'll hear why here in a second, like why Dave was hesitant.
Including your kid. You have a son. How old's your son?
8, 7
Okay.
at the time.
Okay. So pull him out of school during
Yeah.
the school year, and he's coming to Texas. Okay.
Yeah. Dave is here every week unless he notifies us well in advance for a show, just like a doctor's appointment. Can't be gone any more than every third weekend.
No, wait. So let's break this down also. Stephen has started touring as a comedian.
Yes.
Stephen is no dummy. Stephen is very well aware that you and every comic, weekends are when you tour, hit the road, you make the money. So he is very clearly taking that secondary or even primary, possibly at this point, source of income from you, because you're just going to be sitting in Dallas for no reason, because it's not like you're doing shows on the weekends with the Crowder.
Right. And gone every other third weekends means every 6 weeks.
Okay.
So Crowder could go tour on the weekends, but he didn't want Dave to do that. He wanted Dave there at the studio doing nothing, so that he could fuck up Dave's money and he could make more money than Dave. And I don't know. That's just kind of a shady fucking move. I've held manufacturing jobs pretty much my whole life. Okay. I'm always the type of person where I don't fuck with other people's money. Okay. And some people might look at it like a bad thing. Okay. But even if I see somebody like doing something wrong or something I don't agree with, like, dude, what they're doing, if they're not like in a position to like get somebody hurt in a factory setting, it's none of my business. I keep my nose out of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't mess with other people's money. I don't do shit to try to get people fired or to try to get them demoted, stuff like that. That's just some low ball shit. And I mean, in my opinion, that's what Crowder's doing in this situation. He's not demoting him or firing him, but he is fucking with his money. And you start messing with a man's money and his ability to feed his family, you're going to turn a guy bitter real quick. And you're going to have interviews like this come out.
And then writes for show every day.
I'm sorry. I just want to break this down. Was it ever said to you or intimated to you that your touring is affecting somehow your performance or writing for the main show?
Oh, my writing? No. They felt that I had nodded off a few times, which really only happened maybe once or twice on a Monday because of like a delayed flight.
Okay.
But
Okay.
tough shit. I mean,
Right.
that's
Okay.
my opinion. I don't care.
Okay.
Like, like Anthony never would have cared.
Okay.
Anthony was so full. Like Anthony would promote my stand up where I don't even think I would really have to.
Okay.
See, this is where I think Dave kind of fucked up a little bit. Okay. Because if you're coming in after a weekend trip for your stand up and you fall asleep, now, if it only happened once or twice, okay, cool. And I believe Dave in this situation. But I can see where, like, maybe your job performance wasn't up to their standards on Monday morning and your stand up was like affecting your work. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. That could be a possibility of why they wrote them stipulations in the contract. I'm not saying I even necessarily agree with the stipulations if that's what they did. But that could be a possibility, is what I'm trying to say. It's like maybe they felt like your stand up was affecting your work, which, I can see it from Crowder's perspective on this a little bit, but I don't know the full truth. And I'm not sure we'll ever find out the full truth. I mean, there's two sides to every story, and I'm not saying Dave's lying. Okay, I'm not saying that. But as human beings, we can get so fixated on ourselves to where we feel like the other person is 100% in the wrong and we have done nothing wrong. And most of the time, that is a lie. Most of the time, that's not true. Like, we mess something up along the lines. We've made mistakes. I've never been in a position where I've had some kind of altercation or like a confrontation with somebody and it was 100% their fault. I've always had a hand in the situation. Like, I've always done something to either provoke or react to that person, which made the situation worse. Or, as far as like being a good employee, in my opinion, if you ask me, I'm the best employee all the time. But is that all the time true? I don't know. I think that I'm a good employee, but, I'm sure I make mistakes. Do stuff maybe my boss doesn't, I 100% agree with. So in this situation, I think like, yeah, I mean, Dave could have possibly, the stand-up could have been affecting a little bit of his work. Not saying that's what happened, but it could have.
That's how, even when you look back at the Opie and Anthony days, that's how everybody was making money.
But at the same time, it's also like if you're going to be up at 7 or what o'clock, you have to be there at 7. You're not exactly going to be all chipper. It's not like you're.
No, and I'm writing on the plane too.
Yeah.
And so I'm always working. Like, there's not one assignment that I didn't turn in, and I have every screen grab to do that. There's nothing that I ever.
And in fact, you're writing a
failed on.
lot of sketches that just didn't even get greenlit, so you're doing extra work in addition to what did get greenlit.
Oh yeah, this is
Like I said, he could have turned in every assignment. Okay, he could have turned in every assignment. It doesn't mean every assignment was good. And I'm not saying every assignment. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to say like they were bad. But just because you turn something in doesn't mean it's, you're up to a high standard.
that's the next part, which is writes for show every day in the form of sketches, in studio bits, pulling from previous sketches, previous show ideas, and that can be turned into sketches. So that's just busy work that I did every day, just for the sake of busy work, which I'll be honest, I hate. It seems so pointless for a show to do, but it's his show. But it's like, why don't we make the best show we can do? Instead, that's why I think SNL like just comes off like it's written by the CIA, because you're just throwing 5 billion things at the wall instead of going, let's take these 7 things and master it.
Yeah.
I just feel like whenever we would do that, like whenever I would host the show and we would put together a sketch that morning, it would look really good at least for what I wanted, because we were focusing on one thing, not trying to make 3,000 things and then going, well, this half-ass one should work.
Yeah.
Now, man, granted, he has millions and millions of followers, but his show was once that first idea, not just throwing everything just to have busy work.
So oftentimes Crowder, goes off on a big rant about, some of these late night TV hosts like Fallon and there's Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel. There's a few others where he goes off on a rant about them not putting in the effort and like just, coming up with shitty ideas. Like basically Dave is saying in this situation, like Crowder's skits are just like that. Like they don't focus on, 5 or 6 things they do really well. They focus on like a bunch of different things and then they don't turn out very good. Which some of the skits were really good. Some of them not so much. But I will say this, the sketch comedy show that Dave put out, and I cannot remember the damn name of it right off the top of my head. But the show he did with Quarter Black and a few other people. Yeah, it was really good. It was, over the top, kind of reminded me of early Dave Chappelle days, like crossing those type of lines. It was a different show than the Dave Chappelle show. Completely different. Okay. But it was pushing and going over some of those lines that people haven't crossed in a while, that are probably afraid to cross now. And the sketches were so good. Like, I know I'm not saying that because I like Dave. I'm saying that because I laughed my ass off at that show. And that's why I'm super excited for him and Quarter Black to do a show together. But I can see where he's coming from here. He kind of took a jab at Crowder here. Like, hey man, get more original. Quit trying to throw a bunch of ideas at your people that doesn't work.
Look like a hard worker.
Yeah.
He was a hard worker. Now it's an illusion, The next thing is he's ready to start his own show by his own Friday show by October 14th. So now I have a show every Friday for no extra money. So I can't tour on Fridays.
Let's break this down. So you are going to have your own show, which is a plus.
Yes.
But you're not getting paid a single dime to host your own new show on his network or his platform.
Correct.
And in fact, it's costing you money because now you can't be out, doing 2 shows at Friday night in Tacoma or whoever the hell cares, some other city.
Right.
Okay.
So then
I've never heard of that. I'm sorry. I've never heard of someone saying, I'm giving you your own show. You're not getting paid for it. I don't understand.
Yeah, so the contract wasn't going to be for any more money, but Crowder wanted him to start doing shows on Fridays. And I believe he specifically picked Fridays so that Dave couldn't tour and do stand-up, which I find that as a bitch move. Why would you do that? Like, sure, Dave wants his own show, and I'm sure that if you would have said, Dave, I want you to start doing your own show, I'm going to give you X amount of money more. I'm going to significantly raise the amount of money you get paid. Dave probably would have done it. But for no extra money, and then you're throwing in all these stipulations, dude, that's like a slap to the face. I can see where, okay, you've been with a show for 2 years. You got a new contract in front of you. You look at the contract, and it's worse than the one that you originally signed. Yeah, that gives you no motivation. Like, why the fuck would I want to write for this show and keep doing this shit if you're going to treat me like shit? And it'd be different if Dave wasn't good at his job. Like if Dave was terrible in third chair. Dave should have been second chair over top of Gerald, in my opinion. Not in any way gay. Not like over top dry humping Gerald. But he should have been over top of Gerald and been in second chair because he was, in my opinion, the real co-host of the show. And that's just me calling it like it is. There was a lot of times I didn't watch the show because of Crowder. I watched it because Dave was on there, and I knew he was going to say something absolutely fucking ridiculous. So, I don't know, man. It's a shame this shit happened, but I can see why it happened. Because if a contract would have came to me like this and I felt like I was working my ass off for this guy and he didn't respect me, yeah, there's no way I'd stay.
Damn that.
Right. It was, well, it's control, and that was kind of what bothered me. It was the I own you aspect. And then
Okay.
the hours.
But that's the
Monday-
thing. If you're doing your own show, they're making money from ad sales or at the very least adding value to the network because now there's more content and you're not seeing a cent of that.
Right. And that
Okay.
was sort of what it was before, where it was we're going to sweeten the pot, and that didn't happen.
Right.
But it did happen in the sense of road dates.
Okay. Right.
So I didn't complain, but then
Right.
I can't do road dates unless he's on them now.
Right.
So
Okay.
basically, I have to give up my stand-up career.
Right.
So one of the stipulations in the new contract is that he couldn't do road shows without Crowder, but Crowder could do shows without him. So it went from Crowder begging Dave to be on his comedy special, Dave writing some of his material, to all of a sudden Dave's got to give up his stand-up career for no extra money while Crowder goes out and makes a shit ton of money and basically fucks Dave over right to his face and still treats him like a regular employee, not like a cast member on the show.
So then the next thing is hours Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then Friday.
Here's the thing. I also want you to give up your stand-up career, but I'm actually prepared to pay you like a substantial amount of money because I just think it's for the greater good.
I know, but we both know it's not, though.
All right.
How much are we talking? No, I'll sell. Just let me know. Like I'm a whore. You'd be surprised how little I go for. Actually you wouldn't be. You'd be like, that seems too much.
Yeah.
So
I can get you a plastic cup with some Dr. Pepper remnants.
Well, as long as there's a dirty nickel in it, you've got yourself a deal. We also then it's hours Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay.
Friday 9 to 5.
Okay.
Which is so I can never catch a plane out of town on a Friday to even do a Saturday. Then I have to be back on Sunday, making it impossible to see my child or do stand-up.
Yep.
And then the next thing is comedy special releases through Louder with Crowder, because he always felt that he owned my special, even though because he let me keep the door that night.
Okay.
But I didn't sign anything that said, "Oh, you're letting me keep the door, so now you own my comedy."
Wait, let's hold on. Let's slow down.
So Crowder thought he owned Dave's special. And the new contract stipulations is that basically the specials that Dave did comedy-wise, Crowder was going to own them. And basically Crowder owns your ass is what he's trying to say in this contract. Nah, Dave did the right thing. Like I said, I can see both sides on some issues, but for the most part, Dave did the right thing. And I think he's going to have a hell of a lot more support. I mean, him and Quarter Black going to the Blaze to do that new show, he's going to do fine. Dave's going to be just fine without Crowder. He might get more people. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dave, in my opinion, Dave's a likable guy. Crowder, I don't think he's very likable. Not a lot of people in the industry like him. Now, he's got a lot of fans, which is cool. I like Crowder. Would I really want to meet him in real life? Probably not. just because I can just tell he would probably be a jerk in real life. But I don't know that for sure. But I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and I'm going to do the rest of this tomorrow. And the reason why I said that is because we got another about 40 minutes, and I don't want to keep going. I'm going on 2 hours now. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up tomorrow. I'll go ahead and do another live stream, and we'll finish this up. But for the most part, you're starting to be able to paint a picture of what happened between Crowder and Dave Landau. And I'm just going to say this. It sucks that we keep having all this infighting. Like, I understand Dave is not, in my opinion, Dave's not a conservative. He's more liberal leaning right. Okay. And I don't even know if Dave really wants to be that involved in politics. I just don't. I don't know. We'll find out. But, there's a lot more interesting information to get into tomorrow. It's not over yet. There's some I think the juiciest part is towards the end of this podcast and some of the shit that comes out. But, like I said, I'm going to wrap it up. I wish I didn't have to do this shit. I wish that right-wing content creators would just quit arguing with each other, because it makes us look like a bunch of losers. Let's start keeping our shit in house. Like I said, that's the only issue I have with Dave on this. I agree with him on a lot of the issues, but I probably would have just kept it to myself and let it play out. And I understand some of the reason why he did it. I don't think it was to promote his show. I think it was pretty much he didn't want people thinking that he left strictly because he didn't get enough money. So, anyway, I'm hoping that right-wing content creators can get their fucking shit together. If you don't hear anything else in this whole podcast, get your shit together. The left is laughing at us. Do you understand that? Get your shit together. Figure it all out. Quit being gay. Quit having trannies on your show. Quit fighting with each other. Quit fucking up in the spotlight and act like you got some fucking sense. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Get your head out of your ass. We have an election coming up in 2024 that we got to get ready for. We need to start uniting people together instead of looking like a bunch of lefty losers. But I'll get more into that tomorrow. I'm not done. I'm going to go on a big ass rant, and I'm going to call out some of the biggest names that make right-wing content, because I feel like I can say this as of right now, and I don't even like the Daily Wire that much, okay? I like some of the shit that Matt Walsh does. Some of the shit that Michael Knowles does. But I'll tell you one thing. The Daily Wire is consistent. They are consistent, and you don't see them arguing with each other. They are consistent, and they are unified. Now, whether I agree 100% with their messaging or their approach on some things, no, I don't. But you don't see them arguing. You don't see them, getting into big contract disputes, on the internet, unless Crowder's the one bringing it up. I don't know. We got to get our shit together for 2024. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope that the infighting can stop eventually, and that the right-wing conservative content creators can get together long enough to help bring home a win for the 2024 presidential election. Thank you for watching this podcast. God bless you. God bless your family. And God bless America. I'm signing out.